Hello, hello, hello. I'm on live for just a few minutes this morning. I want to talk about emotional intelligence. And you're going to think, well, hang on, what the heck is that? We've been hearing a lot about emotional intelligence lately, especially if you work, because it's all about improving our ways of being at work. It's all about improving our decision making at work. But now I want to talk about using our emotional intelligence at home. My name is Linda. I'm your Back in the Groove Again coach, and I do offer emotional intelligence webinars and seminars, and I have a great tool that I use to help you become more aware of your emotional intelligence. It's the EQI 2.0 model. And I'm also a career coach. And this is where it comes in. So, first, let me give you a brief definition of what emotional intelligence is. It refers to your ability to identify emotions in yourself and others. So, for example, when I'm feeling upset, angry, or even happy, I'm able to recognize that within me. And I'm able to recognize that in other people too. It also refers to your ability to manage these emotions. So I might recognize that I'm angry. So once I'm recognizing that I'm angry, for example, now what do I do with it? So it means that I'm now able to manage that anger more because we're talking about anger. It's also the ability to recognize and appropriately respond to the emotions of others. So if I'm noticing somebody is angry, well, then I'm going to recognize that that person is angry. And of course, I'm only using anger here as an example. I'm going to be able to recognize that the other person is angry and respond appropriately to that anger. And it also refers to empathy for others. So this gives you an idea of what it is. And I think you can have a better idea now of how to apply this at work, at home, sorry. Now, we know that a lot of people now are staying at home. Either they're working at home or they are, they got laid off and maybe they don't have a job anymore. Hello. Maybe they don't have a job anymore, so they're at home. And maybe their spouses are at home or their kids are at home, or maybe they're by themselves. We know that now our current situation is really, really different than it was several months ago. And I've heard that a lot of people have been, those that have been staying at home with children and spouses and stuff, have been getting into more arguments. And, sometimes worse than just arguments. So that's one of the reasons I want to talk about emotional intelligence at home. We all know that being inside a house can stir up a lot of emotions. So if you're using emotional intelligence to your advantage, remember it's the ability to identify those emotions, but it's also about communicating those emotions. With emotional intelligence, there's a skill called self-expression, and it's really the ability to express your emotions. It's also the ability to assert yourself. So, for example, if you need a break, maybe it's a little bit too much, and you have to get out of the house for a walk because you're noticing that you're starting to get a bit upset. Maybe has nothing to do with the kids. Maybe has nothing to do with anything else, but you're noticing it within you. Then it would be to express yourself. And you may say, well, I'm just going to step out for a walk because you recognize that within you, you're getting upset, for example. And instead of lashing out like what we could do, you're aware that you're getting upset. That is being emotionally intelligent. And of course, in the past, I've also talked about mindfulness meditation because I don't really think you can go from no awareness to 100% awareness if you don't spend time, sometimes in silence, noticing these emotions stirring up. So one of the strategies that I always recommend is to practice mindfulness meditation. So we're talking about when you're noticing these emotions that you can actually assert yourself and just set a boundary and go out for a walk or go in another room before you lash out, right? Before you lash out, before you manage that emotion in an inappropriate way. So that would be one of the tips on how to manage your emotions. First, it's by recognizing it, and then it's by setting a boundary and asserting yourself and choosing to do something else instead of lashing out. The other thing that I want to talk about is in terms of stress management. So, with emotional intelligence, I want to say a big shout out, and please let me know where you're watching me from. Please just type it in the chat box. It's nice to know that people are interested in emotional intelligence at home because we're talking about EQ at home here just for a few more minutes. The other thing is on the competencies, another skill that's related to emotional intelligence, that's stress management. So you know how when we become aware of our emotions, we can manage our stress better or differently. You see how it's all related. So, stress management involves also being flexible, it also involves being optimistic. And right now, I just want to talk a little bit more about optimistic right now, optimism. I have to say that a lot of people now are more pessimistic than optimistic. Now, there's a whole range, a whole range of where you are. If you're, optimistic is on one end and pessimistic there is at the other end, you might be along that continuum. Some people are purely uh, uh, pessimistic, and there's no inch of optimism. And of course, one of the ways to become a little bit more optimistic, I believe, is by practicing gratitude. When you take a moment to think about everything you have, and maybe you don't have a lot, but let's not compare ourselves with other people. It's actually looking at what you have or what you are. For example, and I'm going to be uh, giving you some examples. I am able to breathe comfortably. I'm able to walk with ease. I'm able to eat a breakfast. And those are seemingly simple things, but it could be a lot more than that. I'm grateful for the friends that I have, and so on. So when you express gratitude or when you start thinking of things that you're grateful for, things that you actually can appreciate in your life, that gradually increases your optimism. And when you're optimistic, it seems that you can manage stress better. I want you to be thinking about that, right? If you think everything is black and everything is negative and everything is, a negative perspective, somebody who is absolutely pessimistic, then anything that happens through their life is going to be, it's going to be one of those things that they're not going to be able to manage those little tiny things. That's going to decrease their stress tolerance. So you can see how being optimistic and practicing gratitude and being optimistic can increase your stress tolerance. And that, when you bring that at home, can make a huge difference, right? So, stress management, and we talked a little bit about self expression, expressing yourself so that when you are upset, even not just upset. So let me share a couple of things with you. Upset is just one of the emotions, but a lot of times children don't know how to express the emotions that they're feeling. So let's bring it down to home. How can you help your child express the emotions? And I'm going to ask you here, whoever's watching me right now, how can you help your child express the emotions that they are expressing? How can you help them understand that? And write down a few comments. That would be great if you could give me some ideas on how you can help your child express an emotion, or even, let me keep it even simpler, label an emotion. So it helps, of course, if you understand the different ranges of emotions, but let's just stick with the basic one: sadness, joy, happiness, anger, for example, right? And there's a whole range of emotions. Simply by labeling it, boy, you're really happy right now, or wow, are you ever upset right now? So by labeling the emotion that they seem to be expressing, and by listening to them, because you know what, they may not be sad. That is our interpretation of their emotion. By starting with some questions, you know, what's going on right now? What's happening within you right now? By getting them to express, and they may not use the word I'm sad, they may not use the word I'm angry, but getting them to describe how they're feeling, then you might be able to say, oh, you're sad, right? Or, oh, you're really happy. And so sometimes when we label an emotion for somebody, it could be the right emotion or maybe not. Sometimes it's easier with adults, isn't it? It's easier to add with adults, because with an adult we could say, boy, you're really pissed off. And they'll say, no, I'm not pissed, I'm frustrated, which is which is along that continuum. But with kids, it's a little bit different. You might want to start with labeling the emotion, or what you perceive as being the emotion, right? Or you might just start with some open-ended questions, which would be easier. So all of what we're talking about today is how to bring emotional intelligence at home, because we hear about it at work. I don't know, have you heard about emotional intelligence at work? You might have. It's becoming really popular these days. And because I'm trained in emotional intelligence, I thought I'd be able to share a little bit of what emotional intelligence is and how you can kind of develop your emotional intelligence more at home as well. And by listening very carefully. Now, we know that interpersonal skills is, and this is the last one that I'll talk about, interpersonal skills is the last skill that's related to emotional intelligence. And within this interpersonal skill is empathy, is that skill of empathy. So by listening, and sometimes that is very challenging. It's very hard to just listen without wanting to give an opinion. But I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to, when somebody is upset, or somebody, is sad, or whatever they are going through, just sit there and be with them and say, I'm just going to be with you here for a couple of minutes. If you want to talk about what you're going through, I'm here, and I'm just going to listen, and just listen. Nothing else, right? That's the hard part. You need to practice a little bit more of self-control during that time. And the empathy comes through listening and really trying to understand where they're coming from, what they're experiencing. And maybe they don't feel like talking, and that's okay, right? Not everybody is a talker. Not, I should say, not everybody is a talker at that time. You may want to say, okay, no problem. You might, you don't want to talk about it right now. That's okay. When you do want to talk about it, just let me know. Give me a heads up, and I'll make sure I give you as much time as you need. So by practicing your communication skills, you're then able to open up that channel of communication for whenever they are ready to communicate, right? So that empathy, and I'll give you an example. This morning, I was at the post office lining up. There were only two people allowed in the post office, so I had to line up outside, not outside, but in the little hallway there. And there was an older lady in front of me. And because I know, and I'm kind of talking a little bit about empathy here and self awareness. So, because I know that some people have difficult times now, I asked her how she was doing. And she says, "Oh, I'm doing okay." And I says, "Yeah, are you really doing okay?" She says, "Well, we have to accept it. We don't have a choice but to accept it." So, and I was able to at least listen to her while she was expressing that we have to accept it. And I wasn't going to get into any major conversation, but I wanted her to feel comfortable, and I wanted her to know that I understand. I really do understand. And that's it, right? Just that's it. So empathy can be really, really simple. It doesn't have to be one of those long types of conversations. It can simply be a I understand. That's it. Just that. So this is Linda, your Back in the Groove Again coach. And I'm done with my live, just a couple of more seconds. If you are interested in reflecting more on your emotional intelligence, I'm going to be adding, let me see if I can find that right now. I have a 12 days of reflection that I want to share with you. If you give me 1 second, I'm trying to find it. I'll have to find it later. Oh, there it is. There it is. So I'm going to add that in the chat box if I can. I've developed 12 days of reflection. When you sign up for that, you'll be receiving every day for the next 12 days a quote, an inspirational quote, a, um, a positive affirmation, and some reflection questions. And the whole purpose of this 12 days of reflection is for you to reflect on your past few months and 2021. And it's all about improving your emotional intelligence. So I hope you'll sign up for that. All right, this is Linda G. Robert, your Back in the Groove Again coach, saying bye-bye for now. Have a great day, and remember, being empathetic, and start talking about what you're grateful for, because that will make a huge impact in your stress tolerance as well. Bye now.